Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So we're breaking down the upcoming race at Michigan International Speedway for the FireKeepers Casino 400. This will take place on Sunday, August 22nd at around 3 p.m. Eastern. And we are finally not at a road course this week. We're back to a large oval, which are definitely a lot easier to predict from a fantasy perspective. So I'm definitely looking to it as far as that aspect goes. But I do want to give a shout out to last week's race because it was kind of boring. But then at the very end, I mean, it got real good, real fast. We had the curbing. We had everyone wrecking. We had the Denny Hammond Chase Briscoe fiasco, which you guys can let me know whose side you're on in the comments down below. Then we saw AJ Allmendinger win the race, which I think everyone was kind of excited about that. So, I mean, I know it was a road course, but it actually got very exciting very quick later on in the race last weekend. So I had to give Indy a shout out for that, although it was a bit of a hot mess, but at least it was kind of fun at the end there. But anyway, if you guys find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. That really does help me out. And if you guys want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon, get access to all the extra content in the Discord community. There's a couple hundred people over there. I'd be more than happy to have you. Link is down below in the description for that. And last week was actually a pretty good week. I do want to shout out a couple people that reached out to me. First off, we had Bonnie, who put in only like $100 some and won about $11,000. That's insane ROI. Had to give her a shout out. I know she's a longtime member of the channel and the Patreon. I also want to give out to a member in my Discord chat, DL Hoglin, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, taking over $10,000. And we had some other people send in some pretty good scores as well, so it's always really nice to see. So if you want to check it out, you do get access to the entire spreadsheet, my projections, optimizer, ownership projections, which I personally think are the best in the industry right now. And then coming in September, we'll have 3 sports going on, so the all sports package is definitely never going to have as much value as it does at that moment because we'll have NFL coming on. We have MLB still going on, then we have NASCAR all the way up until November, so there's going to be a lot of stuff going on, so if you want to check it out, now is one of the best times to do so. And last but not least, this video is sponsored by PrizePicks. I'm sure most of you know what it is by now, but if you don't, it's daily fantasy sports simplified, just you versus the projections. There's no sharks, 150 max contests, or salary cap restrictions, or anything like that. Just you versus the props that they offer each and every single day. And as of right now, if you're a new signee over on PrizePicks, you can use code CPEN to get a free money bonus. That's an instant deposit match up to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. And as of right now, I am offering PrizePicks projections on the spreadsheet, as you can see in the third tab here. And some of the lines do get pretty soft over there. So I have my projections right beside their props, and it offers a leverage score there for whoever my projections think are the best values over there. So if you want to check that out, like I said, you get a free money bonus. It's free money. Just check it out. I also put my favorite picks in the article. But I think that's going to be it for the plugs for the most part. So without further ado, let's get into the preview of this week's race. And as per usual, I do need to mention a few things before we get started. So first off, the live stream this weekend, we start at 3, which means DraftKings will probably lock at what, 3:11, 3:15, something like that. So we could start really any time in the afternoon. 12 is fine with me. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, does not really matter. I think 12 or 1 would probably be a better choice. You guys can let me know down in the comments below, but we could plan on 12. I think maybe around a noon time. Then we'll have plenty of time afterwards to make lineups, and I can make adjustments and things like that so I don't feel rushed. So I think that might be a good idea. We can plan on noon. And if you guys want to join the DraftKings contest that I host each and every single week and compete for money, prizes, and shoutouts, all you gotta do is comment your DQ username down below, and I'd be more than happy to have you. And as always, I do want to put the winners on the screen from last weekend and give them their shoutouts, so I'll put it on the screen right about now. And coming in first place for, I believe, the second time this year, we had Barbecue King absolutely dusting the field here by nearly 30 fantasy points, taking home $135. And then coming home in second, taking home the silver and close to $100, we had Zweint. Third was Budboy2, who did send me a donation over on my PayPal, so I wasn't able to reach out to you on Twitter because I couldn't reply to it, but I do want to give you a thank you if you are watching this video. Thank you very much. And you finished in third place, taking over $50, so shout out to you as well again. Then we have my man Trey, who's been around forever, like my 8th subscriber, coming in 4th place, just on the bubble there, but enough to get in shout out territory. 5th place, we have Brutus. T. Charleston also in 5th place. Allen's Club in 7th. My man, Big Brady 83, who's Andrew over by DFS by the Numbers. I'm actually wearing a shirt right now. He came home in 8th place. My Wrenchman, Dude in 9th. And then rounding out the top 10, we had Brooklyn BS. So I'm going to give you guys a shout out. You made fantastic lineups last weekend. And like I said, if you want to join, just comment the DQ username down below. And I'll be more than happy to have you. But I think that's it for the housekeeping for the most part, so let's get to the preview of this week's race. And as previously mentioned, this is the FireKeepers Casino 400 at Michigan International Speedway, and we do have 2 Discord members at the track this weekend, so if they have enough internet to view this video, if we have someone out front that we don't want up there, please throw some debris on the track, please, and thank you guys in advance. And to your left is your outline of the track. It's a large oval, 2 miles in length. It's pretty much just a big 1.5. If you're looking for comparable tracks, I would use Auto Club and all the 1.5s. Pretty much all the races we've had in the 550 horsepower package so far this year, which is about 8 races. And typically the guys that have been good at those this season, I would imagine, are going to be good once again this weekend at Michigan. We have 200 laps on deck, which means we have 140 Dominator points available to us, which isn't an absolute ton, but Dominator points are definitely going to be important this weekend. I would get at least one in your lineup. If you're only building one Dominator lineups, I assume it's Kyle Larson, assuming he leads like 90+% of the race, but you can easily do 1 to 2 Dominator builds, and maybe even 3 if you use a bunch of cheap Doms this weekend, but we're definitely going to want to target Dominators unlike we have been the past couple weeks, because road courses have less than 100 laps, which means Dominator points aren't super important. So this weekend, we're kind of doubling that, so we're definitely going to want to put them back into consideration. But that's kind of it for the preview for the most part, so I think we can get to the driver-by-driver breakdown portion of this week's video. And my overall thoughts on the pricing this weekend, I think they did pretty good, although I will say they kind of goofed on a couple drivers, which we will talk about, but they are way too cheap for where they're starting and how good they've been this season. Anyway, we'll start up top here with Kyle Larson, $11,500. He is starting on the pole, and to be honest, I would not be surprised if he led like 150 plus laps in this race and won. He's by far the favorite in Vegas. He's been by far the best and overall most dominant driver in this aero package this season. He's been very good at Michigan in the past. He's also a previous 3 race in a row winner at Michigan. I know it won't show up here because it started in 2016, but from 2016 then the 2017, both of those races, he won 3 in a row. Then his most recent race here, he finished 3rd in the 2019 second race. And like, I would be surprised if he doesn't put on a clinic here. If we're looking at his 8 races in this aero package this season, he's got the most Dominator points by far, not even close, 106 laps led per race, and the second most, I believe, is like Kestlowski and Byron, both at 22.9. By far the most fast laps. He's been the best driver this season. I would be very surprised if he does not win this race. I realize he's on the pole, he's very expensive, but that does not matter if he comes out and leads over half the race and wins. You're going to want him in your lineup, so he's probably going to end up being my highest owned driver. I'm very confident in Kyle Larson this weekend. If you want to pivot off of Larson, I think Kyle Busch is a very good tournament play this weekend. $10,800 seems a bit steep, especially because he doesn't offer as much place differential upside as guys like Byron, Kestlowski, and Joey Logano. But if we're looking at his numbers in this package this season, he has been absolutely phenomenal. He has by far the best average finish of 3.4. Not quite the Dominator points of Kyle Larson, but no one really has that. But he's up there in laps at 21.5. I think he's like 3rd or 4th there, only behind Kestlowski and Byron. Some of the most fast laps. He has 2 wins, the most top 5s at 7, the most top 10s at 8. I mean, he has been very, very good in this package this year, just not quite as dominant. You could use him as your second Dominator in your lineup with Kyle Larson, although it does get a bit pricey, but there's some cheap plays that I think do make some sense this week and make that work. But if you don't want to view it like that and you want to view him as a pivot off of Larson and fade him, I totally get that as well. But he's been good at Michigan. He hasn't finished outside the top 6 since like 2017, so I'm actually a pretty big fan of Kyle Busch in tournaments this weekend. Probably won't get there in cash games just because I'm going to be heavy on Kyle Larson, and I'm not sure I want to go super top heavy in cash, but I think Busch is an excellent target in tournaments. Denny Hammond, $10,400. He's starting in 9th. I prefer Busch over Hamlin. He's been very good at Michigan in the past, although I will say Hamlin's been a lot better in the 750 package this year compared to the 550. I mean, his numbers are still fine. He's got top 5s, top 10s. He has some Dominator points. Like, he hasn't been terrible or anything, but doesn't have any wins. Doesn't have quite the average DraftKings points per race as those other guys. I think he'll be a top 5 contender here, although he's locked into the playoffs, so I'm not sure how much extra added motivation he has to really go out here and dominate, but I mean, obviously he's still going to want to come out and win the race. So, I mean, him was a fine option. Don't like him as much as the other two, but that does come with a cheaper price point, and starting in 9th, there's a little bit of PD upside there as well. William Byron, $10,200. He's starting in 18th. I would say I like him over Denny Hamlin. He starts double the spots further back. His numbers at Michigan aren't overly impressive, but I don't really care too much about track history these days, especially without practice. I think it all kind of matters of how they performed in this aero package this year, and Byron's been actually one of the best drivers in that this season, averaging the 3rd most DraftKings points per race, only behind Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson. 8.1 average finish, the 2nd best running position, tied with Kyle Busch, only behind Kyle Larson. He has a win, 3 top 5s, 6 top 10s, tied for the 2nd most laps led and 2nd most fast laps. The Hendrick cars have been buzzing this year. I think that'll probably continue here at Michigan, so I think Byron starting 18th is an excellent PD play. If you're going to pair him up with Larson, I think that kind of offsets where he doesn't have any PD upside, where William Byron could realistically gain like 15 to 17 spots this weekend. And then Kevin Harvick, $10,000. He's starting in 8th. If this was the old Kevin Harvick, this would probably be an auto play, but unfortunately it's not. He has done nothing in this package to warrant me thinking that he's going to be a dominator in this race. But as far as track history goes, the guy is the man at Michigan. The past 6 races, he has 4 wins, 5 top 5s in the top 10 every single time, by far the most laps led, by far the most fast laps, average finish of 2.2. Like, it's kind of insane how good he's been at Michigan. Like, just look at the recent finishes, first, 7th, first, 2nd. Like, he has been insanely good. The problem is, Like, he hasn't been bad finish-wise this year, but look at the Dominator points. He has 0 laps led in this package this season and 7 fast laps per race. Like, he might be a top 5 contender, but at $10,000, we're going to need more of that. Like, I feel like Kestlowski and Logano can put up similar finishes, but they're starting 10 spots further back, so I'd rather go with them because they're a little bit cheaper. But Harvick, I might have a little bit, but I just can't see him dominating today. I mean, I know he's dominated at one track this year, but that was in a 750 package race at New Hampshire. If he does it, I would be shocked, and I'll probably won't do well in DraftKings this weekend, but I'm willing to bet on Kyle Larson being the main dominator here and not a guy like Kevin Harvick, even though the track history is insane. But don't forget, Larson's also another guy that won 3 races in a row here in the past, and that was in lesser equipment in the 42 car. And dropping down to the 9K range here, I got to be honest, I'm not a big fan of any of these guys besides Kestlowski, because Joey Logano's been pretty bad in this package this year. Truex, Blaney are all fine drivers, but for where they're starting, they don't offer me as much upside as I would like, because I just can't see them dominating over Kyle Larson this weekend. But we'll start with Kestlowski before I get ahead of myself. He's starting in 20th place. I do think he's a pretty good cash game option. This is his home track, so there's always some motivation to do well here. But if we're looking at his numbers in the package this year, it's actually been pretty solid. He kind of flip-flopped from last year, where he wasn't very good in this package, but he was good in the 750. Well, this season, he's good in the 550, but not that great in the 750. He's been one of the better dominators in this package this year. He's got 3 top 5 finishes, 5 top 10s, average running position of 10.4. He should very easily gain around 10-some spots in this race, and below $10,000 with an upside of a top 5 finish, I think Kestlowski is certainly in play for me, and I will have a decent chunk of ownership to him. And then dropping down to his teammate Joey Logano, starting in 19th. I always prefer Joey in the 750 package races, because in the 550 this season, he's been pretty bad. Not to the point where he's terrible, but he has 0 top 5 finishes, 3 top 10s, 4 top 15s, barely any laps led or fast laps. Like, he'll probably be a top 15 driver, but to be honest, at $9,600, give me Kestlowski for 200 more. Joey Logano really hasn't shown it in this package this year. He's kind of been selling out for the 750s, so not a big fan of Joey, but he is playable for where he's starting at that price point. And then we have a bunch of drivers starting really close to the front who are kind of fringe plays for me. Truex, Blaney. If I had to pick one, I think Ryan Blaney might be the best play here, because he's been the best driver amongst those 3 in this Aero package this season. He has the most top 5s at 4. He has a win. That was at Atlanta, where he actually passed Kyle Larson at the very end of the race. And I know he's starting 3rd, so there's not a lot of upside there, but he could be a guy that finishes 2nd, picks up some fast laps, maybe a couple laps led here and there, maybe battles for the win with Kyle Larson. He's good. He's a good driver at Michigan. He was battling for the lead last year, where he got wrecked out by his teammate Brad Keselowski. Honestly, could have won that race. And at $9,000 for one of the fastest drivers at these track types over the past couple seasons, I think Ryan Blaney is actually worth a shot in tournaments this weekend at that price point. Elliott's obviously in play because he's a Hendrick driver at $9,200, just starting 2nd. Kind of rough if you're rostering him alongside Kyle Larson for only a 200 lap race. Then Truex. He's been better at the 750s this year. I know in the past we've always liked him at the 1.5 mile tracks. He's also very good at Michigan and Auto Club, but I don't know. He's kind of been more of a guy I targeted the 750s this year, although at that price point, I think you can target him in some lineups because I think he'll be solid, but starting in 5th place, I just have a hard time seeing him be optimal this week unless he happens to get out front over Larson, which I think is kind of slim chances there. Then dropping down to the 8K range here, we have 2 very, very chalky drivers this weekend, which we'll get to in a second as they're both at the bottom. But we have Alex Bowman at $8,800, starting in 10th place. I think he's a decent tournament pivot out of some of these other drivers in this price range, because look, Christopher Bell, Austin Dillon, these guys might be the 2 highest owned drivers on the entire slate this weekend. DraftKings really messed up their price tags. They should both be around $9,000. Like, let's be honest, I think Bell and Austin Dillon should probably be where Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, and Martin Truex are. I realize they don't have the dominator upside, but I mean, I think it would just make more sense. Like, these guys are, like Austin Dillon especially, is very good at 1.5s or just large ovals in general. But anyway, Alex Bowman, starting in 10th. He's a decent tournament pivot here. He's been very good. He kind of similar numbers to Ryan Blaney this season at these track types, where he has a win, 4 top 5s, just 1 more top 10. Just kind of similar. I mean, they're not big dominators, but I mean, they have chances to win this race, and he's in a Hendrick car. I mean, they've been by far the best cars this season. He has top 10 potential, starting in 10th. He could easily get a top 5. I mean, I think Bowman's actually a decent play below $9,000. Kurt Busch, $8,500. He's starting in 6th. Good at Michigan, but not really too interested here, especially with the other 8K drivers we have. He's definitely my least favorite of this bunch. Eric Almirola, $8,300. He's starting in 23rd. If you're looking for the direct pivot off of the very chalk drivers, Almirola does offer you place differential upside, and he'll have like a 1/4 of the ownership, but I think that's deserved. His average running position at this package this season is 20.7 with a 60.9 drive rating and not even 1 top 15. Like, it's been bad for Eric this season. I like him better at the short tracks. That is not one, so I can't imagine myself having too much Eric Almirola. I'd just rather go really heavy on Bell and Austin Dillon. And speaking of those guys, if you are playing cash games this weekend and you don't play Bell and Austin Dillon, I think you're doing it wrong and you're probably trying to burn your money because it just makes no sense to fade these guys. Like in tournaments, yeah, you can get different, but in cash games, if these guys just hit their averages, they are going to absolutely smash their price points. Like if they just hit their averages, we're looking at like around 50 DraftKings points at a low 8K range. Like it makes no sense. I don't know why DraftKings priced them below Eric Almirola, Kurt Busch, or really even Alex Bowman or maybe Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott. I guess Chase Elliott makes sense because he can dominate a race and he's one of the best drivers in NASCAR. But let's be honest, for DFS purposes, I mean, give me all the Bell and Austin Dillon I can handle. I mean, Dillon, he's an average finish of around 10th place this year with 7 top 15s. Bell, he's been a guy rostered more so at road courses and the short tracks, but he still has an average running position of around 15th place this season with 2 top 10s in the 550 package. He's in a JGR car. He has top 10 upside. I mean, starting at 28th, $8,100 is kind of a joke of a price point here. So pretty much my 2 favorite plays on the slate here, although just keep in mind that would definitely reflect in ownership. Then dropping down to the 7K range, you have another really good place differential play in Daniel Suarez at $7,800, and I'm a big fan of all the RCR cars. I know he's on Trackhouse Racing, but he's kind of the third RCR car, and I think all these guys are fantastic plays, including Tyler Reddick, which we'll get to him in a second. But Daniel Suarez has actually been pretty good at these track types this year with 5 top 15 finishes, nothing inside the top 10, but he's typically the guy that can finish around 11th to 15th place, and at $7,800 starting at 30th, we can gain like over 15 spots. He is certainly on my radar this weekend. Might feel a bit expensive for Suarez, but can definitely get on board here. Ross Chastain would be a good pivot off of some chalk because he's priced right beside Suarez, Dillon, Bell, who should all gain a lot of ownership this weekend. And Ross Chastain has shown he has a lot of upside this season. You can easily get a top 15, top 12 finish, and starting in 22nd, there is some upside to be had there. Although I will mention, he hasn't been that great in the 550 package this season, but the upside is there for him as he does have a couple of top 15 finishes. Ryan Preece seems a bit overpriced for me. Although I will say he has some oddly good finishes at Michigan where he finished 7th in 2019, then 16th in 2020. I think those are kind of outliers. I'd expect him to finish around 20th to 25th place. At $7,500, it just really isn't the upside I'm looking for. Like the safety net's there, but he just feels a bit overpriced in my opinion. I would much rather play Tyler Reddick over Ryan Preece this weekend. Tyler Reddick might be one of my favorite plays on the entire slate here. That's mainly because of his starting position, because I'm hoping people stay away from him because there's a lot of good PD plays in this slate. So Tyler Reddick starting in 14th, this doesn't look quite as appealing, but his numbers are pretty similar to Austin Dillon at these track types. Good challenge for like an 8th to 12th place finish with upside of higher, and at $7,400, I really like the value there. I love Tyler Reddick in tournaments, one of my favorite tournament plays on the slate this weekend. MDB, I think, is a pretty easy fade starting in 4th place. He does have a top 5 in this package this year, but I absolutely need him to get a top 5 to be optimal for where he's starting. I just do not see that happening. I'd be pretty comfortable fading MDB this weekend. Ryan Newman at $7,100. The Roush cars have actually been pretty good in this package this year, but I think Ryan Newman's a pretty good fade candidate on this week's slate. Cole Custer, $7,000. He's been pretty horrific in this package this year, but starting in 27th does make him somewhat playable, but I don't think the upside is super high. But he could gain around 7 spots, which would be okay on DraftKings at $7,000. Then dropping down to the 6K range, the cheap plays aren't great this weekend because they're starting kind of high up, but I think they do make for some pretty good tournament plays, like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting in 12th place. That's going to look really gross to a lot of people, but he has 5 top 15 finishes in this package this year. That's out of 8 races. Like, I know starting in 12 is kind of scary, but if he can kind of hold his ground, finish around 10th to 13th, like, that's not a bad day at $6,900. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. I think Stenhouse is certainly playable in tournaments. Chase Briscoe at $6,700, starting in 21st. He's been a really popular play recently because we keep going to road courses. Unfortunately, that's not the case for him anymore, and like, I don't think Denny Hammond is going to be around Chase Briscoe during this race, so I don't think there's going to be any retaliation there that you have to worry about because Briscoe shouldn't even be close to Hammond in this race. If he is, he's probably getting lapped, but I think Briscoe is playable starting in 21st. He's one of the few place differential plays in this price range, so I assume he's going to have ownership just because of that. Although, keep in mind, he's starting kind of around where he finishes in this package so far this year. Chris Buescher, $6,500. He's starting in 11th. I think he's a similar play to Stenhouse, but I actually like Buescher quite a bit this weekend. He's been very good in this package. Every single race we've had this year, in this hero package, he's finished inside the top 20 every single time. He has 3 top 10 finishes, 4 top 15s, an average finish of around 13th place, running position around 15th, averaging close to 40 DraftKings points per race. I think Buescher can hold his ground here, and at $6,500, that's not a terrible thing because, again, we barely have any good cheap plays this week, so we're going to kind of have to flock to Buescher, flock to Stenhouse, flock to Briscoe, and I think they're actually okay plays this weekend. I know the starting spot's not great, but he's very cheap as well at $6,500. Bubba Wallace, if you're just trying to differentiate down here, I'll have some Bubba because of that, but I'm not super excited about it. But he does have 4 top 15s on the season, which would be okay at $6,400. Eric Jones starting in 13th, probably a good fade for me. I mean, if he was in the 20 cars, sure, but I can't do it in the 43 cars starting 13th. I think there's a very high chance he will lose spots. Michael McDowell, $6,000. he actually might be the best 6K driver in terms of safety. He's actually been pretty good in this aero package this year. The last race, he didn't finish inside the top 20, but the previous 7, he has 2 top 15s, he has a top 10, average finish of 17.3, starting in 25th at $6,000. I'll probably have Michael McDowell in cash games this weekend. Dropping down to the 5K range, we have Anthony Alfredo at $5,800. He's starting in 35th. As gross as it sounds, he should be able to gain close to 10 spots in this race. He has an average finish of 26.1 with a running position of around 26. I mean, it's gross. It's the pasta man. I hate playing him, but starting in 35th, if he can gain us like 8 to 10 spots, that'll pay off his price point below 6K. Corey LaJoie is no longer racing. That should say Josh Berry. I forgot to fix it before I got into the video, but at this point, I don't think you guys care because we're probably not going to play Josh Berry anyway. But he's the same exact price point. He will drop to the rear on pace laps. I really don't have any interest there. Then after that, Cody Ware, BJ McLeod, Justin Haley, Davidson, Smithley, Balicki, Half. I cannot recommend playing any of those guys. The lowest I'm willing to go this weekend was going to be LaJoie, but now it's Alfredo. But the pricing is kind of soft, so I don't really think you have to dip down low anyway. But with that being said, I think that'll be pretty much it for the video. So if you made it all the way through, please let me know down in the comments below. I do appreciate that. If you don't follow me over on social media, I'm at ChrisPennell16 on Twitter, CPen16 over on IG. If you did find that video enjoyable in any way possible, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. We have NFL coming up. We still have baseball going on. We have NASCAR. We'll have NBA in the winter, or the late fall, I should say. So lots of content coming to the channel. So hit that subscribe button if you think you're going to stay around. If you want to help support the channel over on Patreon, link is down below in the description for that. Don't forget this video was sponsored by PrizePicks, and if you're new signing over there, you can get a free money bonus up to $100 when you use code CPen and tell them I sent you. I think that'll be pretty much it. I will see you guys in the live stream on Sunday afternoon, and I wish you guys the best of weekends.